We are back once again with Taylor Bradford of the Gloucester Daily Times to get the latest on what's going on. First up is the closing of the gun range.
So the city's Ordinance Administration Standing Committee made an announcement this week that they're going to cease and desist all firing over at the West Gloucester firing range. So this means that the Gloucester Police Department will not be shooting any of their firearms over there at any point anymore. Now, this discussion has been months in the making. If we go back to this past April, right after the pandemic hit Cape Ann, you'll note that an ordinance had been amended to kind of open up the opportunity for the police department to be able to use that range as the state added new requirements to their shooting that they needed to qualify in different guns. And so the West Gloucester shooting range seemed like the perfect location for the Gloucester Police Department. However, according to the West Gloucester residents, it was in fact not. And they had spoken up for months about how this was not the right spot, how it was detrimental to their living situation. It was triggering to PTSD. It was dangerous for residents and their animals. And so as this conversation goes on, about a couple weeks ago, the slightest change that was going to be made was that they might amend the hours in which that the firing might take place. So that was happening, and so I was tuned in, ready to go to the next O&A meeting to hear what the proposed amendments might be, what they might finalize. I went to the meeting a couple weeks ago, and they decided to continue it, saying after we'd received information that they were going to hold off. Then at this meeting that this past week, they came in saying, we're going to cease and desist. And I was wondering, why? Like, why did they make those sudden changes from, we're just going to make a few proposed changes to we're shutting it off entirely? And the reason that Steve LeBlanc had mentioned is that they realized that the land was Article 97. Now that means that the land is deed restricted, and that is protected for water use and recreation use only. And so that does not include firing ranges, such as the Gloucester Police Department had been using it as. Now, this is an interesting conversation because it had been months of the residents saying that, they didn't want this, that it wasn't right. They actually hired legal opinion to weigh in, and it was in the legal opinion that they pointed out that it was Article 97. So I think it's an interesting thing to point out that after months of kind of residents saying, we shouldn't have it here, and then finding reasons why, it was only until then that, the city really shifted and said, okay, we're actually going to stop. Obviously, as of right now, there's still processes that they have to go through to amend the ordinance to cancel it all together, but the Gloucester Police Department, as of this Monday, will not be shooting there anymore. I spoke with the Gloucester Police Department, or Chief Ed Conley as well, and he also mentioned that they don't have any firm plans as of yet of where they're going to, because they still need to do those requirements. The new state regulation says that they have to qualify on every single firearm twice a year. And so they said, they might go to Fort Devens, although they know that could be pretty costly. There's also talk of, changing the location to, they had mentioned that there was a shooting range inside the Gloucester Police Department in downtown. They said they might refurbish that to actually make it, right now it's not safe. They might refurbish that to make it more safe. Or I think the most fascinating one is that he had mentioned that you can buy or purchase these boxes, these storage units that they've kind of adapted to be indoor shooting ranges that kind of reduce the noise level and also make it safe for them to be able to do it. He said there's also talk of, finding another outdoor location, but he said after this whole experience that might not be the most effective direction. So we'll see what they decide on, but as of right now, walkers over at Haskell Pond Reservoir can note that there will be no shooting over there any longer.
Mm-hmm. And I wonder what the difference is between the sportsman club and a firing range for the police. I don't know.
I wondered the same thing because we have those, right? Sportsman clubs? Yeah.
We do.
Yeah, and I know that Chief Ed Conley had noted in a couple other previous meetings that they had temporarily gone there, but they stopped because they that is specifically used for other things as that organization works. And so the police department coming in, stopping everything to do their training, I think it sounded as if it seemed like it might not work with the two organizations, or how each particular unit functions. Right. It wasn't as compatible. But that's a great question, and I know that this isn't an issue just localized. This is something that's all police departments are trying to figure this out as this new requirement comes. And Chief Ed Conley even noted that as other people are trying to figure out how do they go about getting their qualifications, but also making sure that they're not, making the lives of the residents difficult or different. And I think the big thing throughout this story is that, both the city and the residents all were trying to collectively find a solution. Residents acknowledge that they understand the police department has to get these qualifications. They just don't want it in their backyard.
Gotcha. And of course, another big story this week is what's going on with the Board of Health in Gloucester.
Yeah, as we touched on earlier this week, Karen Carroll of the city's public health director had sent an email to the Board of Health late last week, noting that there were 6 areas of concern that she had about how the office of the mayor was involving themselves within the department's process of mitigating COVID-19. And so there's 6 different things, and a lot of those things, were kind of putting themselves in places they shouldn't, trying to get people vaccines and, dispersing information, maybe not as was the plan with the health department. And so there's a lot of intricacies to that as of right now, but there's also a lot of generalities. We don't really know what or who or how long all this has been going on. And so tonight, Thursday night, the Board of Health is going to be discussing that email. That's all as we know right now, but we'll have more to come as that meeting does take place at 5:30 tonight via Zoom. And the link can be found on our website and also on the city's website.
Yep, and you can stay tuned here at KPN Today and at Gloucester Daily Times. We'll have the latest here in case there are some new developments. So thanks for that, Taylor. Okay, lastly, as we're speaking now, spring has sprung. It is gorgeous outside, and you're about to hit another local trail.
Yes, and I'm so excited. So it is surprisingly beautiful this week, and it has been a great opportunity to go on trail runs, to get a little lost, have some donuts afterwards, and maybe some, water to hydrate as well.
Of course.
I found one trail this week that I'm just enamored with, and it's the Homestead Trail in Essex. Now, I've run that trail plenty of times with friends. My family is originally from Essex, and it wasn't until I went onto All Trails and I realized that this trail has a name. It's called Homestead, and it's really wonderful. I've always known it's wonderful, but I didn't know, some specifics of how long is the actual trail, what's the topography. And so it's cool to see that and also see people's comments on, what their experience was of the trail. And, as I said before, my family's from that area, and I've always considered Essex to be kind of a quieter town. The only hustle and bustle I've ever heard is either at the Turkey Trot in November or the Clam Festival behind the library. Mm-hmm. And so to be able to know that there's also this little oasis, it's been great because it's just as quiet as the town. Sometimes I call Essex a napping town because it's a great place to kind of mosey on a rainy day. But I'm finding too in the sunshine, it's also a wonderful place to run and hear the birds sing and see the little buds popping. So although sometimes it's a little bit slower there in Essex, it's also pretty lively right now. So that's coming soon on Friday.
Great. How long is that trail?
I believe it's about 3 miles. I think. I know I've gotten lost making it longer than 3 miles, but it's about 3 miles, 2.8, something like that. So those specifics will be there as well. So great.
Very cool. Something else to look forward to. Okay, thanks for your work, Taylor. We'll be talking to you sooner than later.
Sounds great, guys. Have a great weekend.